Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night at 7:12 p.m. Central. We got Professor Wham with us here tonight and Tillie Treadwell. And we're talking about the Mandela effect in our paranormal investigations with the Weird Walk Home, which is what's the link to that? Do you have a link you want to give out?
If anyone would be interested in learning more about my show or maybe catching an episode, you can just hop onto YouTube and search The Weird Walk Home, and it should pop up for you.
Okay, and basically this is like year 17 of the show. And I think that is maybe off a year, might be 18. I forget, mix it up. But the show got started because I had a lot of experiences after going through testicular cancer when I was 17 and chemo and all that fun stuff. And then a few years later, my dad passed away. This was in Georgia. And I started to have a lot of weird experiences, from UFOs over houses that I lived and people agreeing that it seemed like I was attracting them on some level, from beings of light. I've seen those many times with my naked eye, leaving my house, and I think maybe they might have been my dad, and in some kind of a light body or something like that. But there's been some, a lot of being type sightings. Had some correlations with UFOs where I've said prayers when I had trouble getting interviews and I would have a UFO sighting. And then next thing you know, I'd be on the phone with Stanton Friedman, nuclear physicist. He's passed now, but and I would, it seemed kind of like there was a synchronization of something that is glad that we're talking about this and raising consciousness. Of course, I think there's crappy stuff out there with, negative stuff too, but it seemed like I've had some experiences with the positive with it on many levels, and that led to doing the show. And here we are, run ragged and still kicking. But so what started you on your journey with all this?
Well, if I am mentally stable, emotionally stable, and if I am understanding what happened appropriately, I started having experiences, non-human experiences, when I was just in the crib, a little baby of about 6 months old or so. And beyond that, the experiences just kept continuing. And I've all my life had experiences with, you could say, the Fae, with even time slips and quantum slips like the Mandela effect. And then later on, a more, you could say, exotic encounters when I was a paranormal investigator. And after 2 years of clinical training for severe trauma patients, I decided to retire from that. But I took my training and applied it to paranormal investigating and became a type of, you could say, paranormal counselor. And I found a lot of links between mental health and physical health, environment, and then paranormal experiences, the type, the frequency, non-human encounters, the messages that those other types of people may bring to humankind. And it's just been like my channel name says, it's been a weird walk home. And here I am today. I'm still trying to spread the message of love and harmony and self-care in a less hands-on paranormal way, but hopefully in a way that people will find fun and engaging and maybe even a little bit unique.
Well, what were some of the cases that you came across with some of this work? Is there any that stand out?
There are a lot actually that stand out. What kind would you like to hear specifically? I have one about a Bigfoot. There are poltergeist type investigations, so-called demons, energy vampires. There's a lot.
Well, let's start with Bigfoot. That's always a kicker.
Absolutely. Well, although I cannot, mind you, give out all of the exact locations, I can say that all of the cases I'm about to reference took place up in the northern states. So think like Indiana, Ohio, those types of states. In this man's property, he had a house on the edge of the woods, and he had a beautiful, beautiful property, but it had been paranormally active for quite some time and apparently had been really picking up steam over about the last 6 months before he called us in. Um, for him, the final straw he relayed to us was that when he was out in the woods, he witnessed a giant, roughly 7 foot tall Bigfoot, furry with brown hair, super muscular, walk face first into a tall, healthy oak tree and disappear into the oak tree. He was absorbed, the Bigfoot was absorbed into the oak tree and just disappeared. And this gentleman was out of his mind, concerned about several factors. First, he thought he was maybe making it all up, hallucinating, but then, based on the other activities that he had seen within the house and around the property, he decided that he needed to get some professional help, and that's how we wound up going out there to investigate. And I hear a lot of reports from human people and then the non-human people in the past that have been kind enough to speak to me. They've told me that rocks and trees in forests are both gateways to their home dimensions, but also are their homes here. Yeah, so I never experienced a Bigfoot for myself, but that is the secondhand report that I do have. And of course, this gets into how Bigfoot and UFOs and poltergeists and the Fae and other types of hauntings may all very well be connected, maybe even one and the same.
Yeah, I've heard stories of people having Bigfoot encounters, and then like poltergeist stuff will follow them home and things like that
Yep.
from different people. And what else did he go through? I mean, what was it scary at any point, or it was just like he saw it and freaked out, or
Sure, sure. Well, he reported that items in the house with his family, they were moving, falling off of counters by themselves, sometimes flying across the room. He claimed that there were apportated objects, or how do you say? I'm sorry, apported objects, and that there were shadow people walking around the house or gliding along the walls, and sometimes he said that he could swear that he saw someone or something coming out of a corner or coming out of a wall or out of a pantry. And then I didn't get to talk with the kids, but the kids had left us voice notes saying that they had seen the same types of phenomena as did the wife. Oh yes, also, how can I forget? There were a few reports of mimicry that they would think that they were hearing what appeared to be another family member calling to that person in the other room, or they'd think that they would hear their own voice talking in another room. And of course, the other family member wasn't there, and they knew that they weren't in that other room saying what was being said. And I don't think that those were actually anything that wasn't anything dangerous going on. I really do think that that place was just a giant portal for quantum slips and all kinds of dimensional travel.
and why do you think the poltergeist follow the Bigfoot? I mean, I've tried to figure it out, or is it the actual Bigfoot doing stuff, or is it like just I don't know? Is it just attracting weird ghosts or something because it's around? I'm trying to figure out. I've heard like the stuff happening. I know with Skinwalker Ranch, and I haven't read the newest book I have. It's Gathering Dust on a Shelf, but supposedly some of the soldiers that went to Skinwalker Ranch came back to their houses, and phenomenon like that followed them home, and they felt like some of their children were in danger and stuff like that. And I know some of the Skinwalker stuff is when they will do mimics and or try to lure you to a part of the woods or do weird stuff, like vocal, like mimicry and stuff like that.
Hmm. Well, I think that it might be important for me to make it clear that I don't like or appreciate what the Skinwalker Ranch team is doing. They go over there, they're launching off violent rockets, they're digging up who knows what, and they just have a bad attitude, in my opinion. They have a really combative attitude. And so I think it's perfectly fair for anyone else out there to see it as acts of war. So I have no sympathy for those men.
Yeah.
And I do know that a lot of this is seemingly highly connected and probably the same thing. And I think that more often than not, it is a reflection of the person who is being interacted with, who is being haunted, allegedly. So this is where it gets into my experiences with non-human people. So I've been diagnosed as being extremely neurodivergent. I have very low ego content and very low emotional content. The non-human people, back when I would do my investigations, you could say the jinn, the shadow people, the so-called demons, the fae, they would approach me and talk to me and say, we would talk to more physical people if they were calm and they weren't thinking emotionally and they weren't combative. And then they would explain to me often that this is they wear different masks depending upon the audience and the context. To answer your question in a more roundabout way, I hope that helps.
Yeah, the Skinwalker Ranch thing, I've kept up with it for a while, and I know there's the Beyond Skinwalker Ranch thing where they're going to other ranches and similar phenomenons happening. But the most alarming thing about all that is there's so many government spooks involved in that show that it's just like reached a level of real creepy insanity, from Colonel John Alexander to former Bigelow employees to security that used to be there. Like it's just basically like a spook operation at this point. And I think there's phenomenon, but the way the government's so enwrapped in it, it's really creepy. That's mostly why I keep up with it, because it's creepy and it's on TV, and they're having giant conference meetings with attorney state generals there, former Bigelow employees, Colonel John Alexander, and they're showing it. And the last
Yeah,
season ended with them saying there's an alien base or something under there, and they can't drill through it, and they don't know if the military put it there or the aliens put it there or whatever. But it's definitely the weirdest crap I've ever seen on TV, and it's alarming and spooky. And then there's the Chris Bledsoe stuff. He was on Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, and it's the guy that can summon UFOs. He has a book, UFO of God, on Amazon that's doing well. And all these people under are like, I can summon UFOs now too. And they're all supposedly interacting with this phenomenon. It's in the Christian section with 5 stars. And they had him on Beyond Skinwalker Ranch with 2 CIA analysts as paranormal investigators and Colonel John Alexander, and him summoning phenomenon on this show, which
mhm.
is similar phenomenon that I've seen and interacted with, but not on that level in a while. But that's my thing with it. It's just creepy that there's spookery afoot for sure with it. It's like, are they going to bring out a real alien on this show next? Like they're up to something, or a fake alien. We can get into Project Bluebeam and all that crap. But it's definitely alarming. But yeah, Jay, my co-host, believes Bigfoot's entirely physical, and it's annoying. I mean, I've even wondered if there's some that are physical, and then there's like ghost Bigfoot, like quantum Bigfoot. Like you have us that are physical, and then we have spirits. So who's to say they're both not there, or a mixture, or different tribes, maybe different lineages or bloodlines who can do more than others with phenomenon or whatever. But we have Ron Moorhead coming on soon too. I'm looking forward to that. He wrote Quantum Bigfoot, and he has a new Bigfoot book coming out. And he's kind of someone that's diehard and been around a while and more open to that. It's a weirder phenomenon than people who think it's just King Kong running around in the woods, you know.
Sure. Well, this is where I think it's really important to maintain an open mind. And I don't think that a lot of human beings are really good at that. And this is another area where non-human people have told me that this is why they avoid humanity, mostly like the plague, unless they need them for something. Because if we look at, say, the Bigfoot phenomenon, we have a person that seems to be both physical and then also able to transform into something more quantum. Why can't it be both? Why isn't it possibly both? I think that it is, and I don't understand personally the big deal around why a lot of people flip out about this type of thing. Like you said, there's both the spirit and the body, but what if reality outside of the human experience is a lot more blended, the physical into the quantum? Because it seems to me like human people mostly only experience and believe in the materialistic, the physical. And I think that that's a very backwards way of looking at it, at least from my own experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I know a lot of people with the Bigfoot thing. I've had some threaten to beat me up just because I thought it was paranormal a long time ago. Like someone threatened to
Exactly.
beat me up at my house because I think Bigfoot's paranormal. It's like you might need to get therapy, buddy, or something.
Yeah, yeah.
More
And
fiber in your diet.
exactly. And that's essentially that's also why I retired from the Exorcist Light team that I was working on, because although the church leadership believed me and although my own team had proof of the things that I was saying, and it actually lined up with a lot of their own biblical beliefs, even though I'm not religious. I've never been religious. I don't like religion personally, just for me. But everything was lining up. They believed me, but the priest told me it is much safer and wiser for you to keep quiet about the things that the non-human people are telling you and about the things that you are learning and catching on camera and catching on EVP, because humankind is not ready to hear it yet. They are not ready for anything more yet, and your life could be put in danger. And so I found that to be true. I've only been at this public engagement uh, with my channel now for a few months, and I've already gotten threats, and I've already dealt with like sexual types of harassment and people just being so cruel and disrespectful when I've been nothing but kind to them. And this is why, as the meme goes, aliens fly by Earth and lock their doors.
Yeah, what did you mean exorcist? Is that what it was? Is it like it being an exorcist?
Exorcist Light. So I was helping to screen people who were applying for and or already utilizing church services and resources because they claimed that they were being haunted or harassed by demonic people.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And what would happen to them with some of this demonic stuff? Was it kind of like textbook horror movie stuff, or I mean, what were some of the symptoms?
Well, there was no possession going on that I ran into. Um, however, there was absolutely environmental disruption. There was sometimes even verbal and physical interruption. You could say that these allegedly demonic people were whispering in the human family's ears, things of that nature. Um, Anything and everything almost, really, to be honest with you. But I often oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just thinking about me and Christina saw a movie last night, The Dark and the Wicked, and it was a pretty intense horror movie, but it seemed like they were stealing stuff from Skinwalker Ranch, but it was good. It was
Mhm,
definitely one of those you're like, do I need to be watching this? This is pretty
mhm,
crazy, dark. But it was similar things to where vocalizations and something messing with the cattle and things like that. And
mhm.
I mean, the demonic stuff. What's some of the worst that you've heard of that kind of stuff that happens?
That I've heard of, like
Or,
second hand, third hand,
or
or
just with your particular cases, or anything that like a case that you said there were some demonic cases or something.
mhm. Well, to be honest, worst is pretty subjective, and I don't see my former clients as being victims. So I see what happened as being fair and right because of the things that they were doing and keeping quiet from the church that I wound up finding out about and verifying. So I think it was all perfectly fair.
And So what are some of the experiences that you've had personally? I mean, I know you said you've had some since you were a child, but what are some is there particular cases, I mean, experiences that you can tell us about that you've had?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had experiences even up to earlier this week, but if you'd like to hear about one of my earlier experiences when I was a little girl, I was at my grandmother's house, and this was about 4 going on 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was in the early summertime. And I had spent the night over there, and I was just up. I love being up at night, and I love houses. I love domestic life. Even then, I was just fascinated with my grandma's house. So I would just walk around the house in the early morning and admire things, admire like the dim light of certain things. I don't know, I was a weird kid. But I was drawn to music that I heard coming from my grandma's backyard. My grandma, she kept an immaculate herb garden along with certain flowers and butterfly bushes, and she tended this thing like it was her baby. And I went to the kitchen window and I looked out because I was confused about the music. And to my surprise, about 25 feet away at the main portion of my grandma's garden, which was in a large oval shape with mulch and the butterfly bush and a bunch of herbs, right in front of the little bit of herbs, there was a gathering of little champagne lights about 2 or 3 inches off of the ground, but they were glowing beautifully, and I could make out in the dim light that occasionally they were fading in and out between a humanoid form per light and then fading back to a light. And they kept going like that over and over. And as my eyes adjusted even more, I was able to see that they were having a party. They were dancing around with each other, some of them holding hands, dancing in a circle, some of them not just dancing in a circle together. Some of them were just watching. It looked like a lot of fun. And a few moments after that, after watching, this is by far, I think, the strangest experience that I've ever had encountering other types of people. Attached to my grandma's side door, there was a nice little landing and a ramp outside that led to the garden. There was a giant sandpiper that came up the ramp, and I knew it was one of the beings down that was dancing, and a giant rabbit. You know, like in Indiana and Ohio and whatnot, the rabbits in the backyard, they have the gray and the cream coats. You
Uh-huh.
know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yes, it was one of those standing on 2 feet. They had, I don't know if they walked or if they just like materialized on the back landing, but they had tapped gently on the door, and I walked over and I had a brief conversation with them. They invited me to come dance with them and said that I would be very happy. And as a little girl, I I was like 4 years old. I sincerely thought about going with them, and I still today think about how this incarnation for me would have turned out if I had taken their offer. And sometimes I kind of wish that I had, just so I could experience it, you know?
And what
So,
was their offer to join them? Or, I mean,
mm,
what would they say? They wanted you to come to Avalon? What was going on?
they didn't say any place. They just said to come live this. They didn't. There weren't any words, I should say. It was all telepathic, feelings based, internal. Um, okay, have you ever heard the Nine Inch Nails song, "The Warning"?
I know I have. I can't think of it right now, but I know their music pretty well, so probably yes. Right now it's not popping in my head, but I have all their stuff,
Okay,
so yeah.
fair enough. Well, there are some lyrics in that song where they talk or they sing about how you hear it and feel it from inside. That's exactly what this was. And they offered me to come with them because they essentially warned me that the human world was a painful place.
And I listened to Pretty Hate Machine during chemo. That was like a soundtrack. So yeah, I know Nine Inch Nails for sure. And I know when you say you saw there was an experience I had once where I saw these silver lights out in the backyard and trees, and it was not glow bugs or whatever. It was something weird, like something fairy-ish. And at that particular time, I had seen this like weird fat little gray man that almost looked like a apparition of a Buddha statue you'd see at a Chinese restaurant, but alive. And there was a time where there was some white flashing lights in the windows, and I'd wondered if it was aliens with headgear or something. But those lights, I'll never forget them. And it was like almost like there was Christmas tree lights with electricity in the trees, but there was not. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
does that sound like fairy phenomenon? Was that similar? Like, was it lights in the trees or?
Oh, it was in her herb garden, really low to the ground. Yeah, it was champagne colored instead. Is it fairy? Um, I know that a lot of those people, at least according to my experiences, from what they've explained to me, they don't really label themselves the way that human people do. It's all just very general and it all blends into each other. So, as they say, we're all just family, and apparently, with human people being more of the outlier, and that human people, it's more common for human people to put strong box labels on these things. So I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure how to answer your question exactly objectively, if that makes sense.
I understand. And what were some of the experiences that you had recently?
Sure. Well, we're moving right now, and as I'm sure you're aware, moving is a very liminal time, and that's when a lot of stuff can kick up, right?
Yeah.
Well, um, we discovered recently that the house we've been living in for the last 3 years has developed a black mold problem, and we didn't know it until very recently. And that whole side of the house, coincidentally, has developed a strong haunting. So, for example, the other day, my husband and I were standing in the bedroom, which we vacated now because it's just so active over there. And I looked up over his shoulder. There is a bathroom that is attached to that bedroom. And out of the door frame, on top of the door frame that connects those two rooms, like hundreds, if not thousands, of little mayflies came crawling out of literally the woodwork of that door. And then I flipped out because I've never had any problems like this, and it just came out of nowhere. And I've never heard of mayflies being like this. We've never had any issues like this, especially anywhere in the house. But then he went into the bathroom and found thousands more of them had just populated in the shower, just out of the complete blue. And right before that, we were sleeping one night, and you know how on YouTube you can have those lovely playlists that are really soothing for you to sleep to at night, right?
Yes.
Yes. We always play a playlist like that. And this one night, this had never happened before, has never happened since. Our TV, our YouTube app, switched itself from that delightful little playlist that we play every night to, I kid you not, a program about the apocalypse. And we woke up in the middle of the night to it turning itself up on full blast, and there was just the noise of a bomb going off. And then the announcer voice comes on. He's like, and there was massive destruction. and it scared the daylights out of both of us, woke us up from a deep sleep, and it was very interesting. But yeah, we moved out of that room like the next day. I stayed up doing a Florida water cleanse on the whole area and burning incense and all of that good stuff. But then recently, I've been having pennies appear out of the blue on my side of the bed and embedded in the carpet over near my side of the bed, and one in my shoe, and my husband has started to find them just scattered randomly around our house as well, near over by where we sleep now, in the living room where we have our bed set up. Also something brand new, never happened before. So yeah.
Oh, me and Wham talked about Florida water before, and I always mean to get some, but I never do. That's the particular brand called Florida water? And what do you think about it? Does it really help with that kind of stuff and like get rid of it or whatever? It's like
Yeah.
cleanses.
Yes. In my experience, it is wonderful for temporarily, the key word is temporarily, raising the vibration of any person, place, or situation. But it only lasts for a few hours, maybe 12 hours at most, depending upon how much you spray. It can definitely last, though, a lot longer if you do a traditional voodoo style cleanse, which is to take the Florida water, put it onto a rag, or combine it with soap and then clean your furniture and or your door frames, your walls, that type of thing with it. So that's been my experience, though. We keep that part of the house now sealed off with Florida water and the lights on in that portion 24/7. We have no more problems with that side of the house, and I largely attribute it to how we use the Florida water to seal it every single day.
Why is it magical? They make it a certain way. Is it like got stuff in it? I've heard of it a lot. I always
Yeah.
mean to get it, but I forget or something. And maybe eventually we will get some at some point.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. No, it's really it's not blessed or anything like that. It just includes ingredients that are high quality and that are high vibration. They affect the physical and the quantum vibration of whatever it is applied to.
Check it out. I know. Where do you normally get yours at?
Sure. So I just buy mine in a mega pack on Amazon.
I'll have to check
Pretty
it out.
basic.
Yeah, you
And
can get it on Amazon. In fact, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
all different kinds.
Mhm.
Florida water, Florida water.
Florida water. You can also get Florida water bar soap and
Yes.
Oh, I was gonna just ask Wham, not spend too much time on it, but did you meet with Gail and or anything yet? Did that happen?
I haven't yet.
Oh, okay.
Her brother passed away last weekend, and so
Oh,
they have been involved with, all of those family things. So I was going to connect with her over this weekend. I was maybe, the weather here is supposed to be crap tomorrow, so I was gonna actually text her tomorrow morning and see whether tomorrow evening might be a good time to go see her. So I'll see.
cool.
I'll connect with her at some point.
Gail is a Bigfoot situation, so we're always gathering Bigfoot data. Next week we got Brian Seach, and he's like got a cryptozoological organization in paranormal. But I was also seeing he's worked with Stan Gordon a lot, so that'll be interesting. I mean, everything's just so crazy energetically lately in the world with all the Trumpelgooch stuff and the Putin stuff and the blah blah blah. Everything just feels kind of off kilter. Maybe we need to like fill a tub, like a jacuzzi of Florida water, me and Christina, and just like take a bath in it or something. There's soap. That's
Mhm.
good to know, but everything just feels weird. But
It doesn't it?
like it's just on the verge of just totally going to hell like any second. Like I know he was. I don't want to get into this, but I know they were talking about Putin was maneuvering submarines and crap, and he was already threatening to blow us up again. It's like we just do it and shut up. Like at this point, of course I
Right.
don't. want him to do that, but I don't like it.
I-
But anyway, but so how's your husband feel about all this stuff? Is he pretty open to it? Does he have experiences? How did that work out?
Yeah, sure. So, yes, he has experiences with me pretty dang often, honestly, and this has been going on for years. It really picked up right after we got married, to the point where he has seen his cell phone manifest itself into a place where it absolutely could not have been, and we had to fish it out together after a long period of not being able to find it. And there have been other experiences as well, and he's even seen a little, you could probably say, like, a brownie house fairy in one of his own clients' houses, over here in Florida. And then he's been finding the pennies recently. He's the one who brought it to my attention, because I thought I was going nuts. I was like, why am I seeing pennies everywhere? And then he approached me just last night talking about finding pennies everywhere, and he has no idea where they're coming from, and he thinks it's paranormal. I'm like, oh my God, thank you. I thought I was losing my mind at last. So,
There's a an unsolved mysteries on that new one that's on Netflix. I haven't watched them all, but I want to start over and watch them all at some point. But there was one with the guy that's like I guess the Navajo police situation, like X-Files. They were having a situation where these coins kept appearing in this place over and over. Did you see that one, Wham? Do you remember that one? There was like a weird one where like the coins would fall from and clink on the floor. It's really creepy. And that guy's pretty respectable. It's like part of that weird Navajo X-Files department for the tribal police or something. But there was a story like that where these coins kept appearing, and it's on the second season or one of the seasons. It's just an episode about the whole Navajo police paranormal that's pretty good on there. And there's a coin situation, so that is weird when that happens. And so he does paranormal work too. When you say client, that's what he deals with, like that, or was it something else?
say that one more time for me.
Oh,
Or,
your husband said you said he saw some type of fairy in a house. Was he doing paranormal work there, or was it something he does something else?
oh, it was something completely unrelated. Typically, my husband is about as psychic, I like to say, as a stale ham sandwich, and that's okay. We need people like that. That's perfectly fine. But his work is going into other people's homes to do personal services. And yeah, he saw this little brownie, you could say, running to duck underneath of his client's couch when he was there working. Mhm.
What did it look like? Did he say what it looked like? Was it like the little ones on Willow? The little things.
Well, look, oh my gosh. I, I apologize. I've not seen Willow in a long time, so woo. But I can say that he said it was only a few inches tall. Hey, honey. Oh, he don't hear me.
It's okay. I know I'm always trying to figure out a thing I saw. That's why I asked. A long time ago, I saw these three cloaked beings in the woods that were small and slender. They kind of looked like skinny Jawas. You couldn't see their face. There's a black box in front of them, and a cat jumped towards them, and they vanished. And I've always wondered if they were something like that, but I don't really know what the heck they were. But it was definitely creepy. The black box was the creepiest part of it, trying to figure out. Hopefully, it wasn't Satan's webcam or whatever it was. Someone said it might have been like a quantum, like some kind of device, like to travel or something. But
Mhm.
a friend saw those with me, so I've always wondered. And at that time, I'd been reading a lot of Celtic otherworld kind of books and things like that. So I always wondered if it was something, fairy-ish or something
Mhm.
like that. But one of the big ones has been light beings. Has light beings come up any with your work?
Oh yeah, actually, light beings, that's been with me since I was like, I don't know, 3, 4 years old, maybe 5, when I explained that experience to you. But then also when I was around that age, I experienced what I do believe to be a light being directly in my bedroom. And I was told more recently, by some of the non-human people that I've had the honor to chat with, that in their own less physical dimensions, they can, what human people would call, shapeshift freely, essentially, but that their base, you could say, physical form is actually a light. It's a type of light, depending upon that person's genetics. And so sometimes, even trying to come into the more physical realm here, they revert back and forth. Sometimes they can help it, sometimes not. And sometimes they will adopt that form, becoming less physical to try to get away from human beings, or just to maintain privacy and investigate with less energy expenditure to come into the physical plane. There's a lot to it that I've been told, and that I do believe is real and accurate. Hold on just
Yeah.
a second, please. Hey, honey. Artemis. Hey, hon. What did it look like, that little non-human person that you saw running under your client's couch? What color was it? Can you remind me?
A light tan color.
Okay, he says that the little being that he saw under his client's couch was like a little light tan color. About how tall was it again?
Oh,
Because I don't remember what you said.
like 8 inches.
And he said that it was about 8 inches tall.
Definitely interesting. Yeah, there's Willow the movie, which is great, but then they made the series, which was not so great on Disney. It was kind of ugh. But the movie's much better for sure. But there's little pixies that run around in it or something. I remember. I can't remember their names, but
Gotcha.
well, I think a lot of the fairy stuff and the alien stuff's connected, and a lot of people think that, but there's definitely, like, it might be one and the same phenomenon. Very similar for sure. And so you said you're not religious, but would you consider yourself spiritual with dealing with all this? Is there a particular belief system that applies to your spirituality?
Those are great questions. I would say that I'm deeply spiritual, and that if I had to lean towards any kind of organized system of belief, it would be possibly like Japanese or Buddhist animism, but only the portion that applies to believing that every object is sacred and may contain a soul or a person or a spirit. And yeah, that's about as deep as I go with any organized religion, to be honest with you, or organized spirituality. Otherwise, I just believe that it is healthiest and most accurate objectively to, how do you say, take as much responsibility as one can for his or her own mental health, safety, incarnate journey, the storyline that one chooses in this life. And I do not believe in any kind of worship whatsoever for myself. If other people want to do it, that's not my business, I don't think. But for myself, I think that worship is evil, and I think that it is a great way to enslave someone.
And I know when I've seen the light beings, it was kind of a proof to me that there's, a great spirit, God, or maybe even, Christ consciousness, because they were glowing people. So they probably
Sure.
have a supervisor, or the force, the nirvana and things like that. But I know Mandela effect was one of the topics, and I don't know much about that. My extent of knowledge is that Berenstein Bear situation. That's about all I know about Mandela effect. First off, why do you know why they call it Mandela effect? It's not after the leader dude, like from Africa or whatever. Is another reason why they call it Mandela effect, or is that just like, I think Mandela can mean more than just a last name? Like, it means something else, like something spiritual or something, doesn't it?
Perhaps, but if so, I'm not aware. From what I understand, it was named after Nelson Mandela because
Oh, really?
several
Okay.
people, several people back in the day remembered him dying in jail or prison in 1991, and that was my memory as well originally. But now that's clearly it's not the case. So, and then there are some people that have multiple fully formed memories about when he passed away. And I've talked to a few of those people too. So it seems to me like it's just an example of how storylines, timelines, and events, objective events per the timeline can change on a dime.
And it's when like timelines, like you see something like, let's say Berenstein Bear, and then you see it later and it's spelled a different way. Do you know some other examples of it, of experiences with it?
Yeah, excuse me, I'm sorry. My biggest experience with that would have to be, I would say, the Roman numerals on specific individual clocks over my lifetime, starting when I was just a little kid. I'm fascinated with clocks. I love clocks, and I always have. Well, when I was a little toddler, my mom had picked me up and was holding me in her arm on her hip, and I was looking over her shoulder at the mantle clock on my grandma's fireplace mantle. And I looked away for just a second, and when I looked back, a few of the Roman numerals had changed. And I tend to be a pretty detail-oriented person, so I noticed this immediately, and I started kicking in my mom's arms to try to get her to pay attention. And she just told me like, "Oh, you've got a big imagination, you're seeing things, it's okay." And then, just went back talking to my grandmother. So that was my first experience, and I've watched clocks ever since then.
Me and Christina found this clock. I forget where, but it's like one of those as seen on TV things, and it's a clock. Every, I guess, number is a bird sound. Like a
I
different.
love those. Yeah.
I would think it would get annoying after a while if you're like trying to sleep next to it or something, but we haven't. But yeah, it's like every number is like a different bird species making its racket.
Yeah, those are fun. My grandma, when I was little, she had one of those as well, and I didn't realize this at the time, but I later on learned that the reason it stopped making noise after 8 o'clock p.m. is because she was turning off the uh, the bird calls. There was an option to do that on the back of the clock.
It was at Dollar General, apparently. Christina said that it was pretty neat. Definitely, like you don't want to set that up near the bed. There's like a cuckoo clock next to your bed, pretty much. Still cool though. It's still neat. But Mandela effect. What's the Berenstein Bear thing? Is that legit or is that just like I don't know, crud? What is that? What is the deal with that? Is there something to it? You think the Berenstein Bear thing?
I do. My husband and I have even come across official merchandise before together where it's spelled differently. And we've even seen a few items that have both spellings on it. And it's an official item, brand new, licensed from that company. So absolutely, I think that there is something to it. But whether that is just for some cases, some person in the company misprinting or playing a hoax, or in some other cases, I do think it's real. I just think that every single incident of an alleged Mandela effect is different and deserves to be scrutinized on its own, at least at first. That's my opinion, though. What about you?
I think there's something to it. I mean, I'm not going to rule it out. I mean, I've seen little dwarf people when I'm standing around a black box, so I try not to rule anything out. But I think there may be something to it. But I'm not like die hard into it. Like I only just seen like little things about it and stuff like that. I know there was some horror movie that I meant to watch called that, like, but I didn't get around to it or something. But is there any other thing you can think of with it that's weird that comes to mind? Like any other experiences with it?
With the Mandela effect?
Yes, yes.
Not that I can think of right now, to be honest, because the rest of my Mandela effect experiences, at least strictly speaking about the Mandela effect, are pretty bland bland and run of the mill, like seeing the Target logo change or stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it's hard to say in that way, but I've definitely had time slip experiences, and those I kind of tie into the Mandela effect because I regard them both as being time or timeline slip event types, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was thinking about that a lot lately from that Loki show. Me and Christina are watching Loki. That has a lot of that kind of stuff in it. The Marvel show with the trickster Loki, Tom Hiddleston or whatever his name is. But and quantum, what do you think about timelines? You think there's like a bunch of them happening at once and they merge once in a while, or what's some of your thoughts on that, like timelines and stuff?
Sure. So I personally think that anything that ever could happen has happened, is happening, and or will happen depending upon one's viewpoint. So from the incarnate viewpoint, we see past, present, future. But from what I understand, in incarnations that are lighter in vibration, lighter in density, you have more access and control over time, the understanding of time, the flow of time. And even though I think that humanity, a lot of human people are at a crossroads right now, and that a lot of human beings are really suffering and struggling, I do think that as a whole, humanity is raising its vibration slowly but surely. And I think that that's why we're getting more and more reports of time slips and Mandela effects, and then people swearing that they know someone, for example, really intimately, really closely, and then find out, for example, like, I don't know, their husband, who they've known for 20 years, all of a sudden doesn't like cilantro when they used to love it. And I think that it's just an endless cycle of dealing with different versions of ourselves and each other over infinite timelines per incarnation, but that here in the physical, we don't have access to most of that. But I think that that'll change as each of us raises our vibration and gains more access to timelines and awareness, dual memories, all that good stuff. I don't know. I probably sound crazy though, so don't listen to me.
No, there's something to it. It's gotten a lot more popular lately in shows and stuff, and that Loki show gets into it pretty crazy. I've seen weird things lately where I see like these webs of light everywhere that are kind of like I don't know if rainbow's the right word, but reds and blues, like strings, like everywhere, and you just kind of see it, and you're like, "What the hell is that?" It's like you just see it everywhere, and that's happened a lot to me lately. Just seeing like these, it's like almost seeing like webs of energy in the house. And I think sometimes it means there's some spirits around, or maybe it might be deceased loved ones or angelic. And my go-to usually if something negative happens is I'll call on Archangel Michael, and I think there's something to that stuff. I mean, it seems to work. But there's different things. I know even in voodoo, they call him Daniel LeBlanc or something like that. They call on Archangel Michael. But the light being thing for me, I've wondered if it's us when we're not in these bodies, because I've seen two leave a house here in Florida on Silver Lake, and I was completely sober that particular time. And I saw two leave my house as if they were in it, flew through the roof straight into the heavens. And something told me to go outside and see it. And I went outside and turned towards the house, and I saw it, and I'll never forget it. And I don't know if it was my dad. I don't know if it was the Apostle Jimmy. I don't know what it was, but it was two humanoid shapes of light as if they were visiting me. And I've looked into the heavens before and seen a bunch of them like around in the heavens, like almost like you see a cluster of them standing around. I think it's like maybe a staging area when we die that we go to, and it's like they go there, or when we sleep, maybe we project there. And it's like kind of looking at a Sims game or something. And I've seen a bunch of them in the heavens. So there's something to it. I don't know exactly what. I know shamans and stuff talk about light beings and luminous beings of light. So there's a lot of stuff about that. I know recently I had Neil Donald Walsh Conversations with God on, and he had a book, God Talk, and with that same publisher, they had a whole book about light beings from different people talking about it, like Bernie Siegel, like pretty well-known people talking about light being experiences. So it's a lot of people are having those, and I just wondered if it's us without our bodies. I think there's something to it, but there's all kinds of stuff. It's angels, it's aliens. Someone said, Patricia Corey said it was Syrians. So there's so many different things, and maybe it is a bunch of different things, but there's definitely something to it because I've seen them.
I seen it. I
For
hear you.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're all family, and I think that we're just all at different ages and stages, and I do think that we share a lot of the same phenomena and lore, and even for some types of people, masking and presenting. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was any or all, or maybe even something completely different than what you were just listing off. I have no objective way to say for sure, and I wouldn't dare attempt to be so arrogant, you know?
Yeah. And what about multidimensional selves? That's pretty interesting. Just to think about that some of this phenomenon could be us on another timeline visiting us, or a UFO could be us from the future coming back to visit us, or something weird like your own self coming back to visit you, or something in a different multidimensional self. That's pretty fascinating for sure.
Yeah. And I think too that maybe sometimes it could be us maybe switching in the middle of switching timelines. Maybe it's a type of, you could say, light doppelganger that someone is seeing. I've had experiences like that where I've watched my cat or my husband walk nearby, and then I call out to my cat or my husband only to find out that they're on the clear other side of the house, and they couldn't I couldn't have just seen that, what I saw. Or I've seen repeats of my husband or my cat walking by in the same way, the same direction. It couldn't have been possible. And so I think that there is a lot of shifting and doppelganging going on and whatnot. I think it all depends upon which viewpoint we are viewing life from, really. And I find that fascinating.
Definitely. I remember Wham saying something about some Lovecraftian entity, multidimensional self, or something, something strange like that one show. Wasn't
Oh,
there
wow.
something like that, Wham? Like something like some kind of alien or something, some kind of entity or something like that. Something strange, Lovecraftian.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I remember it.
It's had to have been, well, all of the Lovecraftian entities, I mean, are said to be from another realm, another dimension. So, but oh, look at that! A centipede is crawling by my foot. I just looked down. It's talk about, no, that's fine. They're actually highly beneficial people.
Yeah, we have them here too, and they always have a weird smell. I try not to hurt them.
Well,
They do sound interesting, don't they?
They keep our spiders within tolerable limits. We live in a house where no crawling beast is summarily killed. Sometimes we have to move them sometimes because they don't always locate themselves in the best, the in the summertime, the cobweb, the cellar spiders will do things like, oh, here's water, let's build a web over the toilet seat, and you do have to move them when they do that, because that's not a good place. But anyway, I do not recall what you were talking about, Jeffrey. So
it was something about a Lovecraftian. So it was a long time ago, so I don't know.
I think maybe it was that when I was writing those short stories, And I had a dream. I had two dreams in one night of a being. It was a very strange being that seemed to be like um, Azathoth, who is supposed to be the idiot creator of the physical universe, and in the Lovecraft mythos, and and it was weird because I had these two dreams. It was like I was dreaming, and both times I was dreaming, and then all of a sudden, the dream, within the dream was interrupted by this weird being stumping around, kind of just stumping around. I mean, like not doing anything, but it was kind of like, if your dream was like a television and all of a sudden something invades it and just starts walking around. And it happened twice. And the being, what I remembered most about it was that it seemed to have the sightless, its head was kind of like it reminded me of like an asteroid. Like if you could imagine like just a rocky head, and it had two sockets where where there would be eyes if it was a normal, physical being, but it was like those sockets were just like holes. They had never actually held a side organ. It was just weird. It was very strange, and I couldn't figure out, like, oh no, don't crawl in my clothes. Let me move my clothes.
I've actually stepped on a centipede before. You feel very bad about it. It's not
I
something
know
I would.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to hurt it because they are good. It's also a baby one, so I
Yeah.
don't want to. But I don't want it in my clothes. Anyway, um, so I thought it was odd that I was writing these stories, and then this being appeared in my dreams. And the second time it happened, I woke up and I just thought, that's strange, why don't you just go away? And it did. And so I finished writing the stories, and that was it. But that's the only thing I can think of, because it didn't have tentacles, I can tell you that.
Yeah, the Lovecraft stuff and all that's so weird. It seems like he's definitely pulling from some kind of weirdness with all that weirdness. There's definitely something weird going on with it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that whatever came out of his head, whatever came out of his head is very. There is something to it. It's too tinged with fear. His own fear.
Yeah.
To be like an honest representation of something, unless unless it was so powerful he created his own egregores. But he touched on something. There is something there. But whether or not you want to actually interact with it is another thing entirely. You know, um,
What about insectoid type aliens? Have you, Tilly, had any experiences with that? Or I've never have. Those freak me out just thinking about that, like the mantis and stuff like that, and things like that. Those are creepy to me for sure. Which that may not be their intentions, but just seems creepy for sure. The
Yeah.
mantis aliens.
No, again, it doesn't really matter so much when it comes down to the end of the day what someone's genetics are. At least not in my opinion, not in my experience. I believe it matters more what's at the heart of an individual. And so, at least for myself, maybe because I'm accustomed to seeing other types of people who do not look as humanoid, I'm not really afraid. I've met mantis people, I've met bat people that look like the old fashioned, like you could say, Draculan bat vampire hybrid people. Uh, I've met other types of half human, half looking, animal looking people. And it doesn't bother me. It doesn't freak me out as long as that person has a solid code of conduct that aligns with my own, and we can communicate and they're friendly towards me. So,
What do the Dracula people say? Are those considered psychic vampires, or is that something else?
oh, that is something completely different. No, these people, I genuinely don't believe that they were trying to siphon off any kind of energy or anything. It was more that they were just showing me their genetic, you could say, translation of body from where they came from into how it would look here in the physical. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've had some reptilian experiences that were very strange, and they were multidimensional, and there were some psychedelics at play, but definitely other people around who were
I was
not.
sober.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most of my experiences, I've been sober, but I'm not going to lie. There's been some party experiences that have happened as well in my youth, but it happens. But as far as
Aw.
the reptilian things were like it was Halloween night at a lake, and they were very ethereal. But the weirdest thing ever, I thought at first they were fallen angels or the devil, because my dad was a preacher in Georgia and all that. So my first thought was, oh my God, this is a false situation that's happening at the crossroads. But one was very humanoid with a lot of like some kind of apparatus that I wouldn't say Medusa, but it was weird, like a reptilian, but it had weird hair that I don't think it was snakes, but it was weird. And there was a Hydra. The closest thing I've seen to it is some Mayan glyphs from some oracle cards I have, these wood glyphs of their gods. And it was weird because they gave a positive message, like I love you and write and sing and dance. And then you're seeing this thing and it's like a horror movie saying something positive to you. So it was like a complete conundrum. But I've also heard of that with ayahuasca, which I've never done that. But I know some shamanic experiences. They've seen serpent type entities during some of their tripping and stuff like that. So it seems something like that. So I think there's and Terrence McKenna and stuff. Like I've studied him, and I think there's something to that psychedelic experiences, and maybe these reptilian beings or serpentine beings. I know Wham's talked about Nagas a lot, which is some kind of a
Sure.
reptilian being. Who was that recently that said something about? Oh, wasn't it you, Wham, that said something about gin and dogmen or something? That was pretty fascinating. We were talking about that. Was
No.
that you?
Oh, yeah. I was just talking about how, if you are familiar with the traditions of jinn in the Middle East and North Africa, one of the ways in which they appear from time to time. I mean, a lot of them can appear, since there are different types of them, they can appear in different ways. But one of the ways in which they're reported to appear, at least in the areas of their traditional haunts, are what we would call dogmen. Whether they're exactly the same as what people saying that they're seeing dogmen here are, I mean, how the hell do I know? But they appear, they can appear like that, kind of like humanoid with dog heads or jackal heads,
Yes.
hyena heads. That's another option. But they appear in other ways too. I mean, they're non-corporeal from our standpoint. So, they can take different forms. Although I guess according to the traditions, the various nations of them tend to take certain forms over others. But, it depends on whether they like people at any given point or not. I mean, there are some jinn that are supposed to be helpful, and then a lot of jinn that are like, humans suck. And some are absolutely antithetical to us for a variety of reasons. So,
Yeah. And Wham, the Naga, what do they look like? What I
well, the Naga proper are what the serpent people are called in India, in Hinduism, and the Buddhist traditions. And they're, I mean, at least in those traditions, they're understood to be a very ancient category, I guess you would put it, category of sentient being that appear to us in serpentine form, although they can occasionally appear in other forms. But and my understanding is that they appear, at least some of them appear in serpentine form, not so much because they're serpents, you know what I mean? Like they're like regular snakes, although snakes can be their representatives, but because that's kind of how we experience the manifestation of their energy here. And so that's sort of how they appear to us. They're similar in some ways to what in Northern indigenous traditions, or at least the ones that I'm familiar with in the Northeast here, the horned serpents. Although the relationship between humans and them are a little bit different, but they're supposed to be like just a really ancient category of being that is connected not just to water, but kind of helping to maintain the structures of the planet, the physical structures of the planet. And they're scary to people. I for some reason, I've had lots of experiences with them, lots of dreams about them. I've had them approach me. I don't, I figured that I must be related to them in some way. And I've had them come in my home, and I've had to ask them to leave because I don't like my sleep being disturbed. It's like, come in politely. If you can't do that, then leave. It's very simple. But I do offerings and stuff to them every month. So
what do you give them? What do you give them? Porch?
No. I mean, I do two sets. I do two sets of offerings on the new moons. On the new moon, I actually do offerings to the horned serpents here. And I do them in accordance with what I've been taught by both Algonquin and Cherokee teachers. And it's not to do, I don't give offerings to like get anything from them. It's mostly just to thank them for their reality and sort of maybe hang out in their energy sometimes. And mostly I think because, at least with regard to the horned serpents, they've come to me. I mean, I've had two distinct circumstances where they have actually come to me to greet me or to give me information. And apparently at one point, without realizing it, on the astral level, I freed one from an imprisonment, and I didn't even know that's what I was doing. Which would piss some people off, but I don't care because I'm not from here. So anyway, and then on the full moons, that's when I do the Naga stuff. And I do that in accordance with Hindu ritual, which I've been taught. Very simple Hindu stuff. So I try, whatever offerings I give, I try to do it within the context of whatever the tradition is, because that's sort of what they'll understand. That's kind of, it's what they're used to. And I even use the languages. So, like when I do the horned serpent ritual, I use Cherokee and Shawnee, the languages. And then when I do the full moon thing, I use Sanskrit. So, you have to study these languages a little bit to figure out what's going on. And again, it's not to get anything from them, although they have done things for me spontaneously, actually. There have been times when I've had some really, I've had trouble making certain decisions or trying to figure out, like, how can I let go of this situation or this person or something? And they've just shown up and said, listen, we'll take care of that. Just don't worry about it. And that, not in a bad way. It's not like they're going to kill anybody or anything like that. It's like, we'll just take care of that. Don't worry about it.
Mhm.
That's sort of in our purview, you know. And so then they do it, and then it's gone.
I've had exactly the same type of relationships with what I do believe to be less corporeal, non-human people. Yeah, and I really honestly prefer the non-human relationship model because there's a lot more selflessness in it, in my experience. It's a lot clearer in communication, and I really love that they always follow through on the things that they promise. And I love that so much. And what you're describing makes a lot of sense to me. That lines up exactly what they have told me over a lifetime, that if people would be more selfless towards them, more objective and less accusatory, then they would be more than happy to interact with humankind. And so I think you nailed everything with what all you just said there. And I think that your testimony is really important, to be honest. So I'm very happy to have met you, my friend.
Oh, well, you know, the truth is that I think what pisses them off, I think what pisses like Nagas off, or you know, some of these beings, is that there's this presumption that, and unfortunately, it's promoted by certain forms of occultism. This idea that that we have the right and prerogative to try to just control these
Amen.
beings.
Exactly.
And I just, it's like, why? I don't even want to I have trouble controlling myself. I don't need to control anybody. I don't need to have favors by people. To me, it's more of a friendship or a relationship, or
Yeah.
you know, and that's it, you know. You know, I will do these rituals for months without necessarily getting anything out of it, you know what I mean? In the sense that, you know, I'm not doing this to get anything. It's just more of an honoring. and
Exactly.
and then every now and then it'll pop up, you know, they'll pop up, and or I'll get some information, and I do that with other beings too. I mean, I guess it's like, oh, where did you go? It's like I walk around and I just assume that everything's alive, because
Thank you. Yeah.
it certainly acts that way towards me. And so, you know, I just, you know, I try not to run into things, or I try to announce myself first, or, you know, whatever, because I feel like I'm surrounded by all the people. That's how I refer to them, as all the people.
Yeah.
You know? And
Yeah.
you know, I don't worry about whether I'm doing it right or not. I haven't found that they're that particular. As long as
Correct.
you're genuine, and your intention is good, and you know, people
You
get
get it. Yeah.
people
Yeah.
get
I
so
agree.
exercised.
Wow. I love that. Would you be interested in coming onto my channel in the near future to talk about animism and whatnot?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, Jeffrey can give you my info.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
agree with you entirely. And I am really bothered by the human entitlement and the superiority complex that it seems most human beings have. And from what I've been told, human beings are born thinking that they are like top of the food chain and whatnot. And that does seem to be true in my experience. And then things like religion and politics just make it a lot worse. So outside of me doing my channel, I am an extreme introvert for the vast most part. I mean, like I'll do a few charity events here and there, but other than that, I avoid human beings like the plague. They scare me.
Yeah, well, present human beings. I mean, I've met a few human beings that are okay, but they are not run of the mill.
Exactly. Same. I have my little circle that I'm very, very close to and that I trust. And outside of that, everyone else gets the pigeon eye because usually they're disrespectful and entitled. Like, oh my God. So just last night, I had a famous author who was supposed to have an interview come onto my show, and I had to cancel because I wasn't feeling well because I'm dealing with mold toxicity and stuff. And I messaged this guy like 20 minutes beforehand or whatever, and I said, hey, I'm really, really sorry. I have to reschedule. And I explained, it's just so much right now. The only thing that he could do was the next day, he dropped me a message saying, oh, I had entirely forgotten about my deal with you. I went and saw a movie instead. I'm like, you're in your 40s or 50s. You don't do this to other people, but it's okay to do it to me. And this was after he had been snappy with me. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I just come to the conclusion that a lot of people just suck. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's yeah, well, Jeffrey can tell you all kinds of weird crap that we've had. Strange, very strange cancellations. What was that one guy that got really weird? That got really weird and creepy. He was some young guy. He got really weird and creepy. Like you tried to schedule him twice, and he just, I don't know. And
yeah, there was one where I'm not going to say who it is or what, but
yeah, you don't have to do that.
Kept not showing up, and it's like, and I was like, even nice and reschedule. He didn't show up to that one, and then he was like, "I'm sending you a Christmas box to make up for it." He didn't. It never got, and so I was like, "Okay, that's fine." Yeah. Never came. I was like, dude, just weirdness. There's a lot of weirdness like that with stuff lately, to where it just makes you jaded with all this crap. You get jaded.
I just have to kind of figure out, like, what are you like in regular life? If you do, like, how do you like manage like really normal things like food and driving in a car? If you're going to act like this, I don't know.
No, Mark. No, Mark, Eddie. It was not the dolphin guy.
Oh, well, no, that guy was another weird guy.
Let's not even go there. The dolphin guy was when I first started out, and he put a book about, I don't even remember his name.
What was that? Was that the guy who said he was having sex with a dolphin?
Yeah, he wrote some psychedelic. This was a long time ago when I first started out, and went through a Howard Stern stage, which now I don't really listen to Howard Stern, but back then I did. But anyway, the guy had a book about a psychedelic experience and making love to a dolphin, and I had him on. And of course, I was like, is there pillow talk? Like, I was being stupid, but he started getting really sick with some of this stuff, and we had to throw him off air, and it was bad. But that was a long time ago. That was a very long lesson learned on that one.
Wow.
I would rather listen to for 2 hours to someone talk about their weird abduction experiences on Mars before I want to hear about somebody abusing a dolphin that way.
Right.
There's a lot of scary story. The Stan Romanek situation. That was used to be friends with them. That got really. I'm not friends with them anymore. They threatened legal action because I turned against him after finding out about some of that stuff that he got with. But there's a lot of creepos out there like that. But
do you think that there's any way that he was actually being framed, or do you think that it's legit that he was just a creeper?
He's a creeper.
I really think creeper. I think
he's a creeper.
At first, I thought there was something to it. He's on David Letterman and all that crap. I thought there may have been some truth to it. But when you start hearing about showing up at his house, finding pedo stuff, and then he had the situation where he said he got beat up by the Men in Black. And in my head, I saw him telling someone to hit him who was not Men in Black. There's just a lot of fraudulent stuff that I don't believe that. I think the whole thing may have been fabricated. Do I know 100%? No, but I wouldn't put it past it. There's definitely some creepy. It just gives me the creeps talking about it right now. My intuition says there's some creeper stuff. They actually invited me to their house once for some. I didn't go, thank God. I get roofied or something. But a long time ago. So I think there's some creepy stuff with that for sure. I haven't heard much out of them anymore, thank God. But yeah, there's stuff like that out there that you got to be careful with and have discernment. It's like a lot of the exopolitics stuff bothers me. Like a lot of it, there's like this just, I don't know. It's like this agreed upon reality that they all agree that's true, and there may be some truths to it, but sometimes it just gets really zany, like Obama time traveling to Mars. And I,
I'm
I said,
sorry. I'm sorry.
said
It's funny.
I said I didn't believe it, and Alfred Weber was like, "You work for the Dark Cabal Illuminati," and like attacked me. I'm a Satan just because I said I don't believe Obama time traveled to Mars. So there's a lot of weirdness, out there that you have to be you
Yeah.
have to run from. I try to run from the exopolitics stuff, but and I jokingly say some of them should write alien erotica porn on Amazon or something. Some of the stuff it just seems like there's some truth to it, but some of it just seems like I don't know. I just don't trust it. Like there's Michael Sala about some military top secret dude that's in the military that comes down to Florida and meets with the ant people, and they give him this tree of life seed, and he has like shows and books about this guy, but there's really no evidence. Maybe it's true, but I would think there'd be something, some more evidence. But
See, to me, what's going on there is they're telling a story about something else. There is a story that they're telling. That sometimes they're tapping into something, but they're confusing levels. And and some of it may be parallel or alternate timeline stuff. And some of it may be just sort of like in their own brains in a weird way. But that person we had on a couple weeks ago, whose name now I can't even remember.
Penny Bradley.
She has this entire kind of narrative that connects to a lot of things that I think are real, that I think are genuine concerns or genuine things. And so I don't think she's a crank in any way, shape, or form. But I also think that there are times when she confuses levels, like she confuses this reality here, this focus arena that we're in, and maybe something that's just to the side of it. And it all sort of gloms together in her. And what happens, and she has these experiences, and what happens is that and I think there is a trauma sort of at the core of what she's talking about. But what ends up happening is because all of this stuff comes together, she hasn't quite figured out the boundaries between all of that. And so what happens are distortions. And this happens all the time. It happens with people when they channel. It happens with people. It happens with dream material. I mean, that's part of the good thing about having a spiritual discipline, is you begin to figure out for yourself, like what your own focus is, and when these other kinds of areas of consciousness are bleeding in, because they're all legit. It's not a matter of real or not real, or false or true. It's a matter of being able to differentiate between levels. And that's really hard. I mean, we're so locked into a certain ego structure in our culture that it's just really hard. You have to develop a kind of fluidity of mind to be able to do it. And I'm not saying I do it all the time. I mean, I have a regular job, and when I'm in my job, I'm just like, that's why I'm so exhausted. When I get home, it's like, this reality is exhausting. It's just,
Yeah.
it's just.
Well, if I may, friend, something really unique about the human experience that I've been taught of is that the human being only has one ego, but
Right.
non-human people have simultaneously no ego, but they can choose to develop several egos, completely aware, functioning, full egos that they can grab onto at any point in time in order to be or portray whatever they need or desire at that moment, especially when interacting with humankind. And so the fascination with human people then is because human beings have one single story that they are living at a time, that they are completely invested in, immersed in, and that is apparently very special because it doesn't exist elsewhere, especially in the higher and higher vibrations. So I find that interesting what you're talking about right now, being locked in and
Right.
discerned.
Right. Well, and for me, I mean, and I can only speak for myself because I do think
Sure.
that people are here for different reasons. Some people are here just because out of bad habit or they're stupid, but some people are here to figure certain things out. And for me, at least, as long as I'm in a physical body here, then that means that I have to operate by a certain set of rules. There are some rules that I need to operate by just to function,
Yes.
and those rules have boundaries, and those actually those rules can be are they can be very good because in some cases, because there are entities that have to respect those rules,
Yes.
because this is a legitimate reality, um, and if you're here, you're here for a certain reason, and and it's just good to try to figure that out if you can, if you have the capacity to do that.
I agree.
But so, if you have the discernment, if a person has the discernment, then you can understand how to function or use the first of all, the reality that we're in is more malleable than we tend to think of it as being. It's we who become very rigid, but
Yes.
it once you sort of figure some of your own parameters out, then you can sort of start using it in very interesting ways. And you're not using it to harm anybody else. You're using it to figure out what reality really is, what the greater reality is, where this reality comes from. It's not to control anything, because you don't need to.
Exactly.
I guess that's the important thing, is that you don't need to. They're these forms of magic, that are all about manifesting your desires. Well, you're manifesting them all the damn time. You're just not paying attention to what your real desires are.
Or
So
they may
it's
not, people may not know. Like, and it's
yeah.
so interesting because what you're saying is exactly a massive part of the like paranormal and spiritual counseling that I used to do. I call it existential therapy, where I would talk to people just about the nature of their situation, their physical, their mental, their emotional, nutritional boundaries, all of that, and then teach them how to craft a life that they're going to love within their own personal boundaries and goals and whatnot, and just learning how to have radical acceptance for one's incarnation as it is right now, I think would solve almost all of humankind's problems. There
Right,
wouldn't be the need
right.
for politics, for religion, or for toxic relationships, or binge eating, you could say, or alcoholism. So yeah, this is why I think it's all very deeply connected.
Although some kinds of binge eating are really great. Like there's this
I love a pizza.
there's well, not just that, but there's this wonderful, I just got a thing for it. There's this wonderful confection that you can make that's called it's a shai halud, a spicy shai halud. Those are the worm creatures in Dune, and it's like a big baked croissant, except it's like big and long, and you fill it with a sweet a sweet curry
Huh,
inside, and give it a mouth, and they're yummy.
interesting.
And you
I
eat lots. I like to eat lots of them, actually.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I've never seen Dune. I've never seen the Loki show. To be honest, I don't watch very much TV. I don't participate in religion or politics. I live a very quiet, peaceful life otherwise. And I only interact with material that I need to for situations like shows that we're doing, or for books that I'm in the middle of writing, or the other types of authorship deals that I have. And that's it. I think, I don't know, for me, it just, none of it feels right. That's just me, though. I don't know. I'm very self-contained in that way.
Right. Well,
Wham's Amish too.
Is she?
I am not. I am so not. I am so
She
not.
avoids TV, which
I'm
I
so
understand. I understand. I watch a lot of movies, and I will watch a show. But
no,
news
no,
and stuff, I
well,
avoid it.
Jeffrey is kind of like, you know, the expert on horror movies. I mean, I'm very careful about the movies that I watch. I do like some science fiction movies though, but I'm very careful about the horror movies I watch, because I've experienced too many things in real life for any of that to for any of that to actually be play for me or entertainment. But no, he's got his virtual background up here, but if you were to see his actual digs, he's got all of these horror fiction masks in the back.
That
makes
perfect
the class.
sense.
This whole collection.
Like Universal Monsters and Nosferatu, the silent films, the good stuff. Like now, a lot of horror movies are just like too much, like it's gore porn. But I like the old good stuff, the real good stuff. There is a new Nosferatu coming out by Robert Eggers. I'm pretty.
I've heard about that.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one, hopefully. But yeah, the classics, Hammer horror, I like that. That's like Peter Cushing and all that kind of stuff, the good stuff. I know there's a movie that me and Christina may watch later, a Spaceman with Adam Sandler, where it's on Netflix and new, where he's on an astronaut and there's some kind of alien spider creature with him. So we're going to check that out later. Some kind of arachnid. Oh, I know one thing I want to say. Rest in peace to Richard Lewis. That was
Yes.
sad news. Friend of Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm on the show, and is a comedian, but he had Parkinson's, but he had a heart attack, so that was sad. And then also, what else? Ministry just had a new album, Hopium for the Masses, which is kind of a full throttle attack on the QAnon Trump crap, which is pretty amusing. Like there's a song on there called Goddamn White Trash. And Big Dick Energy, BDE. It's basically just going after Caucasian white power mongers. The whole soundtrack to go after
Big
them.
Dick Energy.
Yeah, there's a whole video. It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. It's PG-13. So, but Hopium for the Masses. It's a good one.
See, this is why I like Jeffrey. He's just funny.
But Al Jurgensen is Ministry. It's a good band. It's been around for a long time, for sure. Well, we got about 5 minutes, and Tillie, it's been great having you on. And it's great that Wham's here with us as well. And what are some of the future things you got planned? What's going on? And you want to give your links out again?
Sure. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you. Future plans. Well, I have this massive move that I'm in the middle of. In June, roughly, we're planning on starting to travel, essentially, the United States. And if all goes well, I will be doing walks in person with show guests. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Those episodes will be recorded and put onto YouTube, hopefully in a fun, more enjoyable format that's out in nature. So there's that. And then, oh yes, I've also just penned a specific book deal with Joshua Cutchin, if you're familiar with him. He and I are going to be writing a book about genetics, non-human and human hybridization and different incarnation types. And we'll be looking at it from my point of view and then from his point of view. And then my good friend, Tim R. Swartz, will be chiming in with some of his own information too. What else do I have? Oh, yes. I'm working on launching an e-shop right now, and I have hired an artist. She and I are making seasonal paranormal themed designs for the Weird Walk Home merchandise. And I am a dessert tea master. I blend all of my own organic small batch dessert teas. So those are going to be for sale, all paranormal themed and paranormal named on the website that I'm working on. And there'll be fun gift boxes and holiday goodies, all of that. I think that's about it. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I do work with the Quad Coalition of Sciences and the International Dogman Project on YouTube. I am a paranormal author for those lovely gentlemen as well. And so I write exclusive content for them that you can only find on Facebook if you search those two names. I think that's really about it. But yeah, if anyone is interested, please go check out my channel. Tim Swartz and I run that channel together with my husband. That is The Weird Walk Home. That's on YouTube. That's really about it, to be honest. The Weird Walk Home is very, very new, only having been in existence since late October of last year.
I have a dog in here snoring, so if you hear that, it's not my stomach; it's a dog laying on the floor snoring. So I'm just everybody's like, but yeah, I've Tim Swartz. I believe Timothy Beckley used to write a lot of books with him, and Timothy used to send me a lot of books, and I've interviewed. He passed away not too long ago, but I'm familiar with Joshua too. I've interviewed him before. It's been a while, and I have his Bigfoot books, the part 1 and part 2. I forget the name of them, but I have those. They're pretty good. Definitely need to get him on again sometime. It's been a while, but I think I had him on about the smell book he did. There's like a paranormal smells or something like
The
different.
Brimstone Defeat.
Yeah. That's a good one for sure. But it's been great having you on, Tillie. Thanks so much. Thanks to Mark Eddy. You always get great guests. We just scheduled Wally Wagner again, which is always UFOs in the Bible and stuff like that.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun.
Yeah, it's always a good one. Especially he's like kind of like Michael Carter. They're like these Christian preachers that are like rock and roll UFO in your face and trying to make their churches talk about UFOs. So that gets pretty
Wow.
weird. But yeah, Michael's been on Ancient Aliens a lot and stuff. But everybody, you're listening to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM New Orleans, and Brian Seach is next week. And we'll see you next Friday. Thanks, Tillie. Thanks, Wham. Thanks, Mark Eddy. Thanks, Jojo Montado. Thanks, Christina. And everybody have a good weekend. Thanks so much.
Take it all easy. Bye.
Bye.